All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to NHBSR's Measure What Matters webinar, Move Your Sustainability Plans Forward with the Be Impact Clinic. I'm Michelle Veazey, the Executive Director of NHBSR, and it's really great to have so many of you joining us to learn more about our partnership with the University of New Hampshire's Paul College of Business and Economics. As you know, Measure What Matters is a new addition to NHBSR's programming options, and we're enjoying the opportunity to engage more deeply with our members to learn where we can add value to their sustainability efforts. One of the nice things about Measure What Matters is that for those who have taken the Be Impact or Quick Impact assessment, we can see how our members are doing, and so it helps us provide us with information on where we can provide programming that will help all of you. But Measure What Matters is a multifaceted program designed not only to integrate those impact assessment tools, but also to engage our member businesses with programming right here in New Hampshire. So the program will continue to provide webinars and workshops focused on issues that'll support our members' sustainability efforts. But we're really excited to have this additional resource through UNH and the Be Impact consultants, which I'll go into more deeply in a moment. I did want to stop briefly just to give you all some quick logistics regarding the webinar. We're going to have presentations, but at the end, we're going to open up the lines to all of you. We want to really encourage you to ask your questions, to think about what it is that you would like to know more about for your company, because we feel like asking those questions will also help others really think about how they might use these consultants within their company. So we will open it up to all of you. You can individually mute your mics, so feel free to do that if need be. But this webinar will be recorded. We'll be providing the recording to you in an email that will be coming out tomorrow with follow-up information on contact information. But also, again, you can provide your questions through the chat boxes, just typing them in as you go. Molly is also going to be monitoring that, so I encourage you to use whatever format you're comfortable with in order to get your questions answered. So with that, I'm going to switch over. Sorry, it didn't go back to my first screen. Sorry about that, Fiona. We're back. So today, what we're hoping to do is really to give you a little bit more of an overview of B Lab and the Be Impact Assessment, but then also talk about the Be Impact Clinic and how you can use it to really advance what you're doing within your company. We are going to have a couple of guest speakers, which I'm going to let Fiona also introduce, but now I'd like to introduce Fiona herself. As you know, NHBSR values our partnership with UNH, and we work with Fiona Wilson on many different fronts. She not only is the executive director and the co-founder of the Center for Social Innovation and Enterprise, but she's also an associate professor of sustainable business and social enterprise with Paul College of Business and Economics. We're lucky to have Fiona because she has a magnificent background in the business sector as well, working with a number of different organizations, and obviously has been a great resource for us. So with that, I would like to pass the microphone over to you, Fiona. Thank you so much for providing us with your insights today.
Great, thanks so much, Michelle. I'm delighted to be here, and hello everyone. As Michelle said, we're going to talk about two things today: to do more of a high-level overview about B Lab and their Be Impact Assessment, their BIA, and then also to talk more specifically about the new program that we've launched in partnership with NHBSR called the Be Impact Clinic. If you can go to the next slide, Michelle. So I just wanted to briefly give you a sense of who we are. So one of my main roles at UNH is to run our Center for Social Innovation and Enterprise. And we are a center that is primarily about student engagement. Our mission is to inspire, train, and support the next generation of what we call change makers. So really students who are hungry to make a positive impact in the world. And we know from data that many millennials and Gen Z care deeply about making an impact in the world. And our goal is to really provide those students with the tools, skills, habits, and very specifically the opportunities in real world settings in partnerships with companies like your own to hone those skills. Next slide, please, Michelle. We really like to talk about ourselves as UNH's hub for student change makers, and we have a variety of different programs. Some of you are familiar with our summer social innovation internship, our annual social venture innovation challenge, for example, and happy to talk to anybody about our other programs offline. Next slide, Michelle. So we're primarily here today to talk about the B Impact Assessment and our B Impact Clinic. So the foundation of this is the nonprofit B Lab. I've been aware of and collaborating with B Lab really since inception about 10 years ago. I actually embedded B Lab and the work they were doing as part of my PhD dissertation, and have been closely connected with them ever since. It is a nonprofit, and if you're going to go to the next slide, Michelle, their vision is really to help make the transition from the 20th century, which was really sort of the time of this, what we might call the shareholder corporation, where really the sort of primary driver of business was about maximizing shareholder value, very much in the sort of Milton Friedman kind of view of the world, and to really help make this transition to the 21st century, where many of us are now thinking about how can we build stakeholder corporations. B Lab likes to say that they have a vision where they want companies not only to compete to be best in the world in terms of their market share and their growth, but really to be best for the world, and to sort of create models that where companies are continuing to drive profitable growth and returns for shareholders, but they do that in a way that also creates strong social and environmental impact. And of course, that vision is very much aligned with NHBSR's mission as well, and of course the work that we do at UNH. Next slide, Michelle. So B Lab, over the last 10 years, B Lab has really created sort of their theory of change about how do we really sort of move to this new kind of economy. And ultimately, they are trying to sort of do this at scale, building a community of thousands or even more of business leaders who are advancing these kinds of business principles, and ultimately to also help inspire billions of consumers and workers and investors and others to support businesses who are a force for good in the world. And a key part of this is what I've kind of, if you look on your screen, the step 2, which I've sort of highlighted, which is really about, they understood very early on that to do this in a way that was credible and rigorous and thorough, and to really differentiate it from just sort of good PR or just good marketing, sometimes the term greenwashing gets used, that they needed to do this by creating a tool that could be the basis for really evaluating a company's social and environmental impact. Next slide, please, Michelle. So they created what they call the B Impact Assessment. It's often referred to as the BIA. The full assessment is around 270 questions across 5 different areas. And so one of the reasons that I'm such a big fan of this, and I think Michelle and NHBSR also have been supporting it, is that it is, in my opinion, the most holistic and complete way to assess a company's sustainability. It has questions in the area of community, which includes a lot of that focuses on how a company engages with its suppliers and its sort of supplier policies and practices. It also assesses the company's engagement with the local community in which they operate. It looks at a company's customers and the benefit that the company's products create for those customers. It looks at workers and how workers are treated by the company. It looks at environmental policies and practices. And then also really importantly, it also looks at governance and asks the company to talk about the way that its transparency and some of those other things that are sort of vital to having a well managed company from a sustainability standpoint. So really rigorous assessment, upwards of 250, 270 questions across these 5 areas. What I like about it, what makes it frustrating, is that they release a new version of the assessment every couple of years, really recognizing that sustainability isn't static, right? So best practices and policies are always evolving. That definitely makes it frustrating, but I also think that's what makes it such a great tool, because it is keeping pace with kind of current practice. Next slide, Michelle. Just quickly as well, so the anatomy of the B impact assessment, it definitely looks a lot at operational impact. For example, so I'm using an example here, that they will look at sort of things like recycling practices as just one small example. But I also like the B impact assessment because it also looks at the intrinsic impact that your business model creates. So for example, for a company whose core business model is about recycling electronic waste, that would be considered like an impact business model. So it captures both, and these will obviously vary for different companies. Next slide, Michelle. Here's an example. This is an NHBSR member company, Badger, many of you are familiar with. So the B impact assessment has a possible score of 200 points. Badger is actually one of the highest scoring companies in the database with 141 points. It's pretty hard to get that high. They're definitely a leader here. The average is 90 points of companies. So you can get a sense that this is a rigorous assessment that really pushes on companies' practices. Next slide, Michelle. The other thing that I think B-Lab has done a great job of, in addition to making this is open access, it's free to anyone. It's an incredible tool for any company to really assess their sustainability and their impact in a very holistic way. In addition to the BIA, there are also great tools that are part of the BIA. They have little rollovers that allow you to explain this. So if the question doesn't make sense to you, you can get some more insight into why they're asking that question and why it matters. They also have built-in examples, so any company can see examples of how other companies are doing on that dimension. And they also have an improvement report. So it allows companies to understand where they're losing points, but where they could gain points in the future. Next slide, Michelle. And then just lastly, they also have a lot of great resources, free resources that are best practice guides to help companies improve their impact over time. Next slide. So we primarily use this as a free open access tool. It's a great platform for educating our students on what it really means to be a sustainable company. And it's also obviously a great tool for any company wanting to really assess their own impact and to think about ways to improve. As an additional option, companies who get at least 80 of the 200 points can elect to go forward and receive B Corp certification. That is something that comes with a financial commitment to the nonprofit B-Lab, and we can certainly talk more about that in Q&A if people are interested. Next slide, Michelle. So I'm going to take a pause there, and I would love to introduce NHBSR member Samantha Pause. Samantha is Chief Marketing Officer of Mascoma Bank. Mascoma Bank chose to take the B Impact assessment and did the additional step to become B Corp certified last year. So I've asked Samantha to join us to talk a little bit about why Mascoma chose to become a certified B Corp, but perhaps more importantly, the value that they get from that, not just as a certification, but really as a tool for continuous improvement within their own organization. Samantha, thanks so much for being here, and I'm going to hand over to you.
Great, thank you very much. So we did become certified in 2017, and we started the process really looking at it 2 years before that, 2015. And why it got on our radar is that we're a mutual bank, so we're a little different than a lot of our banking competitors, and that being mutual, we don't have stockholders. So we've always had this commitment to the community because we don't have that pressure of paying a quarterly dividend, and we don't have the pressure of answering to stockholders. So it always has allowed us to focus on our customers and our community over the long term. And we've been in business since 1899. We've always been a mutual bank. When we learned about the certification process, we thought, you know what, this is a great way to help ensure that the bank remains a mutual bank, that the leaders of the future of this company have the same set of values that we have now, and don't flip the bank, flip our corporate structure, turn us into a stock-held bank and sell us. So it's important to us to keep our mutuality. So we thought this is a great way to help ensure that we are attracting people with a very similar value set that we have now. So that's why we started looking at it. And then we started working through the assessment itself. And it is a rigorous assessment. And I think, when you start going through the assessment, you can answer the questions, but if you're going to become certified, you have to back up those answers with proof. So as we started going through it, we realized this is really rigorous, and this is going to take a lot of work, a lot of effort. It's going to cost us money. We're going to have to change the way we're doing some things. We're going to have to think differently. And as we went through that, we realized very quickly that there's only one reason that we should do this, and it's because we truly want to be best for the world. And it took us a little while to get our heads around that. But once we did get our heads around that, we have this commitment to our community and to our customers and to our employees, and we want to continue with that commitment. So it was kind of a no-brainer, but we had to really understand the reason why before we went forward. Now that we've become certified and taking the assessment, part of the benefits that we've gotten is kind of the side benefits of, we've gotten business out of it because we have customers that have come to us and said, yep, you're a B Corporation. I'm all about that. That matches up with my value set. I want to bank with you because of it. We've also had a really great side benefit that we weren't even thinking about. We're attracting employees and talent that I don't think would have even considered working for a bank before because we're a B certified company, and that has meant a lot. We're looking at technology differently, and we've been hiring the last year or so programmers and developers. And I've had a couple of them come up to me and said, I never dreamed I'd work for a bank, but the fact that you're a certified B Corporation helped make my decision to come here, and I'm really glad I did. So that's been a really great side benefit. But I think the assessment itself, the true benefit is it now holds us accountable. So before I said we're a mutual bank, and we've always really thought a lot about the community, and we've thought a lot about our customers, and we've done a lot of different things that are really great, but we've never had any real focus. We've never really thought about the actual impact that we're making on our communities and our customers and our employees or the environment, and we've never measured anything. And taking the assessment brought a lot of clarity to us and a lot of focus to what is it we're truly doing, how are we being best for the world, and what can we do to improve? So the assessment itself, I encourage businesses to think about taking it as a tool, just as a tool to bring some focus to what you're doing in the communities or with your customers. It allows you to focus, but it also, once you start to focus, and now gets you thinking about measuring and monitoring. And once you start measuring and monitoring, then you can start setting goals for improvement. And that has been really impactful here at the bank. We have changed a lot of the things that we have done internally because of the assessment. And I think we now have a much better understanding of how we're impacting the world around us and how we play an important role in our community. And it helps us share the message of how we are impacting our community. We can show the impact. The other thing it's helped us do is, we've always wanted to do what's right for our customers and our communities, but the assessment has 5 categories that Fiona talked about, one of them being the environment. And we had never really thought much about our impact on the environment before. But doing the assessment, we can start to see kind of what's important and what should guide us in our decision making. And we've changed a lot of things that we do that have a positive impact on the environment. You know, we're looking at the products we use, the paper we use, the cleaning solutions we use. We've installed a car charging station at our operations center. We've partnered with some community developers, and we've actually partnered in some solar arrays. And we have a net metering arrangement now that we're producing enough solar power that offsets the energy we use at 17 of our locations. So we never would have done any of those things had it not been for the assessment, because it wasn't even on our radar. So I think for companies that truly want to make profit for a purpose and really want to do better for their world, this helps bring some clarity and focus to it. And I strongly recommend that other businesses really just think about going through the process of the assessment. And if you want to be certified, that's fantastic, because it's a great story to tell and there's a lot of great benefits with it. But even if you don't, just doing the assessment itself can be very powerful.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Samantha. And, I really appreciate your thoughtful insights, and working with a lot of companies who have taken the B Impact Assessment over the last number of years. I think your thoughts are echoed by so many, particularly in terms of sort of that as a tool for internal clarity and focus, and as a benchmark. So thank you for sharing that. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Michelle, if you could go to the next slide, that would be wonderful. So that brings us on to the new program that we've launched in partnership with NHBSR, the B Impact Clinic. And it was really born out of 2 desires. One was that we wanted to create opportunities for our students to really understand and to educate them about what does a sustainable business truly look like, and create opportunities for them to engage with regional companies who have strong commitments to sustainability. But it was also born out of the fact that, as Samantha talked about, this is a really rigorous assessment. It takes definitely time, and time is always the most precious commodity for most of us. We know that a lot of companies have been interested in doing the B Impact Assessment, but it just never quite bubbles up to the top of the list. And in some cases, it does take some money, because you need to have staff allocated to it, and possibly have some changes that you make in terms of your operations. And so we saw a great opportunity to sort of create a win-win opportunity here for us to train students at UNH in the B Impact Assessment, to help them really understand the anatomy of the B Impact Assessment and to understand the online tool, and then to pair them with companies who are interested in taking the B Impact Assessment, learning about their impact, learning about how they can improve, but don't necessarily have the resources to do that. So we've been piloting that for a year now. In the fall, we worked with Coya Leadership Partners, and I'll talk more about them in a second. And then this spring, we're working with 3 companies, GWI, which is a Maine-based internet provider, Grandy Oats, a wonderful sustainable food company, and then also Lonza here in the Portsmouth area. Some of those companies are seeking B Corp certification, and that's why they're doing it. And some of those companies are using it exactly in the way that Samantha was encouraging people to do, which is really as a tool for internal clarity and focus. Next slide, Michelle. So just to go a little deeper on on our goals for this clinic. So from a student's perspective, we're looking to have them engage in this sort of immersive interdisciplinary learning. So we are based in the business school, but we work with students across the campus, including students who are in our dual major in sustainability. So they come in with some really good background in this space. We want to help them sort of network and embed themselves in the local sustainable business community. We definitely, are trying to create pipelines between the university and our local leading companies. And as I said, we really want them to understand, not in a superficial way, but in a really rigorous way, what does it mean to be a sustainable company? Sort of as a side benefit, because of the nature of the B Impact Clinic and the work that they do with and for the companies, the clients, it really helps them build professional skills, including project management and communications. Next slide, Michelle. And then for our companies, the clients that we work with, I think, a number of reasons here. One is they get to work with sort of talented, motivated students from a range of different majors. And of course, those students are a sort of future talent pipeline. I think all of our companies that we've worked with to date really have wanted to understand their company's current profile, their current impact, but also to identify opportunities for ways they can improve and strengthen their impact over time. And then a number of them, a number of the companies we're working with do want to get to B Corp certification either immediately or in the longer term, and want to make some progress towards that. Next slide, Michelle. I just want to quickly introduce some of the people that are helping make this possible in addition to myself. So my faculty colleague, Betty Woodman. Betty is a faculty that joined a couple of years ago to really help build out our business ethics program at UNH. She has a wonderful background also in the business world, so brings to this a very sort of practical and applied knowledge as well as her academic training. So I think Betty's on the line. You maybe just want to say hi, Betty.
Hello. Yeah, I'm delighted to be involved with this project. It is such important work, and I have to say I'm so impressed with the students and their involvements. We just had a student presentation on Friday at a facility, and they did just a fantastic job. And Fiona, it's wonderful working with you too. Fiona's done such an amazing job really getting this going at UNH. So I'm delighted to be involved with it.
Thanks so much, Betty. Next slide, Michelle. We're also building a model of having peer mentors. So these folks are not on the call today, but we have 2 peer mentors this semester. They're actually students who are part of our pilot last fall. So the idea is that we're going to try to sort of pay it forward. So students who get the training and participate in the clinic in one semester, some of them will go on to become peer mentors and sort of teach their fellow students and help mentor them in subsequent semesters. So this semester we're working with Vincent Pagano, who is a junior. He's majoring in environmental conservation and sustainability with a minor in economics. And on the next slide, Jill Howard, who is a senior in business administration. She actually has a self-designed option in social innovation and enterprise and a minor in social justice. And these students are playing a huge role supporting Betty and I's mentorship of the students to really create high quality outcomes for our clients. Next slide, Michelle. We have some strong expectations for the students. This is something that they can choose to do for credit if they want to as part of their degree, or they can do it as a volunteer experience. But either way, we set this up as a professional experience with very clear expectations. And so they're really operating as a professional consulting team. Each of them are expected to commit 3 to 5 hours a week at least on the project. They work collaboratively with their client to decide on and then achieve their project goals during the course of the semester. And we also hope it will be a really fun and learning experience for them as well. Next slide, Michelle. From the company's perspective, and we can get into this in Q&A as well, but we are looking for companies who can identify a single point person. We've found over experience that is really important, that the student team has a primary contact at the client. that person, there's a little bit of upfront work to do before the clinic starts, and we can get into that in Q&A. There's some, ideally, that person would attend in person in the UNH Durham campus at the kickoff at the beginning of the semester, and then also the final presentation at the end. And we think it would take about an hour or so of that client's time a week, mostly with a virtual meeting with the team, but also some work to provide introductions to other company staff, providing the students with some of the documentation that they may need to help with moving the assessment forward. Next slide, please. So before we open it up for Q&A, we're really happy that Megan Seidman has joined us. Megan is Senior Director of Brand Engagement at Koya Leadership Partners. And Megan had the, I hope, good fortune of being our pilot client back last fall. And so I wanted to, I'd asked Megan to join us to give us a little insight into what it was like to work with the faculty and student team as part of this clinic. So thanks for being here, Megan.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So Megan, if you could just say a little bit to begin with about why you chose to be part of the clinic, what your goals for the clinic were.
Well, I should let the audience know that our CEO and founder, Katie Bouton, is a UNH alum, as am I. So the opportunity to work with UNH was exciting for us for that reason, as well as to partner with an organization within UNH that was really going to help us steer the ship to get toward the end goal, which was to be certified.
Great, thank you, Megan. So I'd love to hear just a little bit about your experience of working with the student team, and also any advice you would have for companies who are considering applying to be part of the clinic and be a client in future semesters.
I had such an amazing experience working with Jill and with Vincent, and also you, Fiona. Just to give a little bit of context to the companies that are on the line, this is a really big undertaking, and I don't think we were aware of how specific and detail-oriented the assessment would be. And so I would say that without the help of the team to do a couple to be involved in key areas, I don't know if we would have made as much progress. The areas that the team really assisted Koya were to be organizers and researchers. They dug into some of the questions, they liaised with B-Lab, and also they were fact checkers. When you look at the assessment, it's bucketed into different areas. And if you aren't aware of the big picture and how one question ties to the other question in two different bucket areas, your answers can be in conflict with each other. And Jill in particular was so on the ball with how the intricacies in the web tied together for how we approach the assessment. It was super instructive to me. And also what Vincent did a lot of was lifting up. He had real-time experience in working with a client that had gone through the assessment. So he could help us think about how to frame out questions, work with B-Lab in terms of phrasing the questions. And as you heard from Fiona's introduction earlier, her deep experience with this impact assessment and also working with the governing body was so instructive. Without all of those pieces and without all of that content expertise, I am sure that the threshold score that we achieved would not have been possible.
That's wonderful, Megan. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. I wonder if you have any thoughts on advice for clients, potential clients who might work with us in the future?
Outside of do it. I really think that there are a couple elements that you refined with the company expectations that will serve you well. And I hope you were able to cut your teeth working with me. But I think assigning one person is critical. I think understanding how to empower that person from within the internal culture is also going to help the team stay on task and on time. One of the areas that we ran into, whether it was end of the fiscal year or certain pieces or certain points of high productivity and activity was that you needed certain pieces, particularly from HR and from finance, that had to do with the audit and that had to do with confidential employee data. And if you can't get that information in a timely manner, the team is in a hurry up and wait situation. So pulling together all of your department heads in key business function areas and saying, when the question comes to you, to have a quick turnaround, I think would be very, very helpful. I also think one of the things that Katie did is say this is an organizational priority. Koya has values that are deep to who we are and what we do, and the values of impact, about having a positive impact in the world, and also respect, making the world a better place. We work with mission-based organizations and not-for-profits, and I think Samantha addressed this earlier when she said business was coming to her as a result of endeavoring to be someone that had B Corp certification. That's huge for our clients. And so when Katie said this has a bottom line impact, it was real and it's proving to be true. So I think that there is a business imperative with doing this work, as well as, depending on who your workforce is comprised of, a millennial and also some younger up and coming people that will populate your organizations going forward. It's super important, and people talked about how this was something that helps them decide about where they want to work. So working with you helped us to present not only to the world that this is important, but also helped us in what we had to do as a business that hopes to continue on into the future.
Great. Thank you so much, Megan. Really, really appreciate your kind words and your partnership, and also appreciate you being on the webinar today. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Michelle, I think at this moment we can think about turning over to questions from the audience.
Great.
Do you want to go to the next slide?
So a few of you are self-muted. Just want to let you know, in case you are having a hard time coming on, just make sure that you unmute yourself. But wanted to open it up for everyone just to maybe share your perspective or ask questions that you might have, specifically Fiona or Megan. Samantha actually had to jump off. So if you have questions for her, I'd suggest maybe you frame them for Fiona. But any questions that people would like to share?
Hey, Fiona, it's Michelle. Hi, it's Colleen from Timberland.
Hi, Colleen. How are you?
Hi, good. So I have a question. So B Corp, B certification is something that Timberland has been keenly interested in for many years. And we were about to go down the path to pursue it the year before we started, well, actually the year of being acquired by VF Corporation. And back in that time frame, 2011, it was, my understanding is that B Corp certification couldn't be for a subsidiary. And so the plans to pursue it just kind of fell to the wayside. I understand that that's not the case anymore. And so we have started socializing it internally again as something that we're interested in doing. But I do feel like it's unclear yet. And I do plan on connecting with the B Lab to understand that a little bit more, to find out for sure whether or not we could even pursue certification. So I bring all of this up to say, without that answer being positive, I'm wondering, I still would like to do the impact assessment as a tool, right, to see where we would fit and stand and what we have to work on still. I also think that if we score well, it would help further the internal desire to get the certification. If we're above 80, why wouldn't we want to do that? However, the hesitation is that there's lack of appreciation for how much work it's going to take for us to complete the assessment for a company as big as Timberland. And so I need to better understand that. And then if we're not able to get fully certified, it's the internal parties that are going to be involved in providing the information to complete the assessment are reluctant to make this a priority if at the end of the day we can't get certified. So I guess what my long-winded question is there someone that can help me understand the magnitude of the amount of work that it would take for a company like Timberland to complete the assessment?
Sure, I'd be happy to answer that. And I think somebody is typing and doesn't have themselves muted. So if you wouldn't mind just muting yourself if you're typing, that would be fantastic. Thank you. So Colleen, yes. So two or three part question. So you're correct that it is now very possible for subsidiaries of publicly traded companies, or in fact for publicly traded companies themselves to become B Corp certified. So I would definitely recommend, in this region, you could talk to the folks at Stonyfield. They became B Corp certified as a wholly owned subsidiary of Danone. Ben & Jerry's also became B Corp certified as a subsidiary of Unilever. So both of those would be happy to connect. I mean, you know those folks anyway, but they would be really good people to chat with. But it's entirely possible. Also, like Danone now is the largest publicly traded B Corp certified B Corp. So at some point it could even be possible for VF to become B Corp certified if they were interested in that. I think your other question about sort of the scale and scope of the work involved, it is significant, and it's definitely greater for larger companies that have just more complex structures and bigger customer bases, bigger supply bases, bigger employee bases. One of the things I like about the B Impact assessment is that the questions that you get served up as Timberland are different than the questions that Mascoma Bank would get served up. There's a huge amount of commonality, but they recognized very early on that companies of different sizes based on numbers of employees, revenues, and then also companies in different industries, they couldn't have a one size fit all. So the questions are specific, or are designed to match up with your company size and your industry. It is a huge amount of work for sure, and I think that's part of why we saw this great opportunity to launch the B Impact Clinic, to provide some of the labor and the expertise to help navigate the process. I think Megan spoke to that in her remarks, that it's not just the time, which very few companies just have somebody sitting around who can sort of take this on as a project, but there's also just there's some knowledge and some of the intricacies of how it works. It's a good tool because it is so intricate. It also makes it hard for companies to sort of easily and quickly jump into it. And so that's where we wanted to come in, was to provide students with that training so they can become sort of not very knowledgeable in how the tool works, and then also provide some of that project management. I think Megan's description was great, that they were both researchers and sort of organizers and researchers and sort of project managers. And so I think, for a company like your own, having your CEO buy in, and having that communicated to the senior management team would be really important. Somebody like yourself would probably be the lead, or somebody on your team. But really, aside from an hour a week when you would be kind of meeting with the students, checking in on progress, your role would really be as a facilitator, to connect students with the individuals, your peers in the company, who can provide answers and supporting evidence for specific questions on the assessment. And not to get into too much detail, but we've developed a methodology where we can basically sort the 270 questions by the person. So there's going to be a whole set of questions. Some of them span across all 5 of the impact areas, but they're all going to be answered by the CFO or the CFO's team. And so we would ask for your help in making that connection to the CFO, and then the student team under our guidance would be reaching out to that person and gathering the answers and the data needed. So I'll pause there because it was a long question, but needed kind of a long answer. But I can add more if you have more questions.
And Fiona, if I could just add a little bit of perspective too. Colleen, I know you've probably done some substantial research, but also many companies have, as Samantha has suggested, used both the business impact and the quick impact assessment as a tool. And so some companies where they are large and geographically diverse have chosen to use the assessment just for one location to start, to kind of get their feet wet, and to also really understand the scope of the questions and think about what that might mean in the larger company context. So that's another approach that people are using, and I just wanted to throw that out there as an opportunity for others on the phone that might be considering it.
Great, that's helpful. Thank you both.
So we've got a question coming in from Kathleen of Jack's Pizza, and she's wondering how to make this process cost effective as a small business.
And so I guess the question is, Kathleen, and glad you're on the call. I guess the question is by this process, do you mean being part of the Be Impact Clinic, or do you mean also getting Jack's Pizza B Corp certified?
I'm showing Kathleen that you're self-muted. Oh, here. Kathleen, one of your logins is live. I think you can speak.
So she's
Yes, hello.
actually texting in right now.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello. My name is John Rollins. I also work with Kathleen. She's having some technical difficulties, but I am also here as well.
Hi, John. And Kathleen's question is your interest in evaluating Jack's Pizza's impact and or also getting B Corp certification?
A little bit of both. Just basically any advice for a small set of pizza shops that we can make this process more cost effective.
Okay, yeah. So, well, number one, the students are free labor. So, currently we don't have a fee for participating in the clinic. That may be something we need to look at in the future, but our goal would still have it be low or no cost student, well trained but low to no cost student labor. We see this as a win-win because this is a valuable learning opportunity for our students. So I think that's number one, especially for a small business. A lot of the work of the student teams this semester, we're working with a couple of companies who, on a first pass, aren't close, there are opportunities for improvement. And so a lot of the work of the students is helping identify sort of where on the assessment there are opportunities to gain extra points and to improve a company's impact, but doing that with a lens of, sort of where's the low-hanging fruit, right? And distinguishing what are the changes that would have to be made that have a kind of a cost implication. There may still be great things to do over the long run, but they require some investment. Maybe it's installing solar panels or whatever it might be. But also there are many areas on the Be Impact assessment which is just that are no cost. And one of the things that I love about the Be Impact assessment and the tools that they've built to go along with it is, your company has to, one of the things you can get points for is having certain formal written policies, as part of your HR, your employee manual. And, I think a lot of small companies kind of hold those values, maybe as a founder, founder owner, but you've never just translated those to paper so that they kind of formally sit as part of your employee handbook, for example. So they're great examples of where the students can help identify what those low cost things to do are, and then there are also tools and templates on the B Lab Resources site that allow you to do that in a pretty quick, simple way.
Okay. Thank you very much for that clarification.
I would say
And,
Kuya is a company of 62 people, and we're in 12 locations, and most of us are virtual. But the cost up until we get to certification was just employee time, which I know is valuable, but that there really
that is
weren't
very
any
valuable.
upfront costs we had to endure up until the point we are now.
Yeah, I mean, you were
Okay.
very lucky, Megan, that, you know, because of Kuya's sort of founding principles, you know, you kind of easily got to the 80-point threshold, and so there weren't things that you had to change to, you know, improve your impact that cost you money. But some companies may have, you know, a harder time getting to the 80-point threshold.
And we don't have a product in the same way other people do, too.
Right. Yeah. No manufacturer.
Would you say that it's
And
easier
actually-
to get to that 80-point threshold if you're a larger company based off of a small company?
So, Fiona? Hello.
Yeah, John, can you just repeat that question?
Oh, sorry, absolutely. Are you saying basically that it's easier for a larger company to get to that 80-point threshold versus a small company? And
No.
how would no? Okay.
So the second part of your question was?
It was basically just clarification on what I was trying to convey.
Okay. Yeah, no, I wouldn't say it's easier. In some ways, you know, a larger organization has so many more moving parts that in some ways the work of, you know, getting to the 80 points may be harder, or the logistics of that may be harder. I think it really relates to kind of the company's values and how, to what degree that those values have been kind of formally translated into policies and practice. So, you know, I have the benefit of knowing a lot about Timberland because we work with them very closely, and you know, they publish their own sustainability report every quarter, and they're very transparent about their practices. So I think, you know, for them, getting to 80 points is probably going to be relatively easy, not because they're large, just because they've had a long-held commitment to these values and have translated those values into formal policies and practices. You know, I think just knowing a little bit about your company from my conversations with Kathleen, you know, you have a lot of values, and you're doing some really cool, innovative things around economic development in your region. You, as a small company, like many small companies, you probably haven't translated those formally into sort of policies and practices yet. So it may be a longer process to get you to the 80 points.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. It was very informal.
Oh, of course.
And Fiona, I wanted to ask a question that I've been asked several times to clarify for people. Because of the diversity of where people taking this are located, how do the students work with companies that might not have locations near Durham?
Yeah, of course. So we have two events, one at the beginning and one at the end of the semester. At the beginning of the semester, the companies give an overview presentation about their company and about the goals they have for being part of the clinic, and they do that, and then the students who we've accepted then have an opportunity to give us their preferences on which team they would like to be on. So we have teams. In the fall, we had teams of 2 students. The first team was 2 students. This semester, we're working with our student teams between 3 and 4 students. I think our takeaway is probably like teams of 3 is 2 to 3 is ideal, actually. So I think having a company, if possible, be present at that kickoff event, because that's really where you're telling the story of your company. You're giving the students a sense of, you know, your goals and what it would be like to work with you. So I think being in person then is valuable, but it's not a deal breaker. And then students are also doing presentations at the end of the semester, and anybody on the call is welcome to come to that. We'll make sure that's included in the information that Michelle sends out afterwards. And I think, you know, just to support the students and be there in person for that final presentation would also be great. But again, it's not a deal breaker. And then in the in-between times, we use a platform very similar to this one. It's called Zoom, and it allows the student teams and clients to have weekly meetings. We actually use video, so the client and the students are actually seeing one another. Clients and students can be anywhere. So you certainly don't need to be close to Durham to do this. And then of course a lot of interaction is also done by email as well. But we try and have a weekly video conference check-in.
Great. So unfortunately, we're coming to the end of our hour, and so I apologize, but we will be sending out an email that will allow you to connect directly with Fiona, and we'll also include Samantha and Megan's email addresses, if that's okay with both of you, so that you can forward questions to them. But we encourage you to stay connected with Fiona. And as Fiona mentioned, we partner a great deal with them and the work that they do, because our members find deep value in what the students can provide, not only through this program, but with the summer innovation interns. We've had several member companies who have actually hired their interns. So I think that speaks to the value of what they bring. So there are many opportunities that you can connect, not only through internship programs, but also some of the great programming that the center is doing at UNH. So there are many opportunities, so please watch for those in the future. But I really want to thank Fiona and Megan and Samantha for sharing today. Thank you all.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
And I also just wanted to mention that there are some more opportunities to connect. We do have a member social that's not really meant to connect directly on this, but we have a member social at Grapponi Toyota in Bow on April 4th. So we welcome all of you to join us there. But more importantly is our spring conference on May 1st. So in addition to the great lineup of programs that we have, Carol Sanford being our keynote, and a number of fantastic sessions. We have 12 going on this year. But we will have tables, both the Measure What Matters programs for people who want to learn more about the Quick Impact and all of the other programming that we have here in New Hampshire to go with it. But right next to us, you will find a table for UNH and the Be Impact Clinic program. So there will be another opportunity to connect with Fiona and with the students to be able to learn, any other questions that may have popped up in the meantime, to chat there. But I do strongly encourage you to reach out to Fiona and continue the conversation more one-on-one regarding this program. But thank you all for joining us today, and I hope this was helpful in understanding how you can use this great partnership to advance your sustainability efforts. So as I said, the webinar is recorded, so I encourage you to access it if you have questions you want to go back to, or if you want to share it with someone else. But thank you all for joining us today. Have a great day.
Thank you too.
Thanks, Michelle. Bye-bye.